Humans didn't discover alcohol. We stumbled into it. It was a messy, bubbling accident that changed the course of history forever. Imagine this. You're standing in a settlement 9,000 years ago. You see a ceramic jar forgotten in the sun. Inside, a strange fermented mush of rice and honey. It smells sweet. It smells sharp. You take a sip. A few minutes later, your head starts to spin. The world looks a little brighter. The fire feels a little warmer. You've just become the first person in history to catch a buzz. Was it a mistake? Maybe. Was it a miracle? Absolutely. This isn't just about getting a drink. It's about how a tiny chemical accident built the world you live in today. Let's be real. If I were there, standing by that bubbling jar 9,000 years ago, I would have been the first one to dive in. No questions asked. I'd probably wake up the next morning with the world's first hangover, wondering why the sun was so loud. Honestly, I'd be totally useless. I'd probably forget my hunting duties and just sleep it off. But that's the point. That curiosity, that reckless need to try something new, is exactly what makes us human. We find something strange, and we just have to know what happens next. The evidence is etched into the dirt. We have to go back to China. Specifically, a place called Jiahu, around 7,000 BC. These people weren't just surviving. They were master mixologists. They weren't making a simple beer or a clean wine. They were brewing a super cocktail. They took rice, honey, and wild grapes. They mixed in hawthorn berries. They let it ferment in ceramic jars. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't a hobby, it was engineering. Did it taste good? Probably. Did it get the job done? You bet. It's remarkable when you think about it. These people didn't have thermometers. They didn't know what yeast was. Yet, they figured out the perfect recipe for a prehistoric sangria. Why go through all that trouble? Why gather all those ingredients just for a drink? Because they realized something we still feel today. Alcohol wasn't just calories. It was a ritual. It was a reason to sit down, share a jar, and connect. Does that sound familiar? It's the same reason you go out on a Friday night. 9,000 years, and the vibe is exactly the same. But the story of wine belongs to the mountains of Georgia. 6,000 years BC. The Caucasus region. Here, archaeologists found massive jars called Qvevri buried in the ground. They found chemical fingerprints, tartaric acid. This is the smoking gun for grape wine. This wasn't just finding wild berries. This was agriculture. They were planting vineyards. They were managing crops. You don't plant a vineyard if you're planning on moving next week. You plant a vineyard when you're building a home. Why stay in one place? For the wine. Alcohol was the anchor. It forced us to settle down. It forced us to become farmers. You could say that we didn't domesticate wheat and grapes. They domesticated us. We traded the freedom of the open road for a steady supply of fermented juice. It's a wild trade when you think about it. Would you give up your freedom for a lifetime supply of wine? Our ancestors did. And that's why you have a house today instead of a tent. Now, let's look at the liquid bread of Egypt and Mesopotamia. 5,000 years BC. Here, beer wasn't a luxury. It was a paycheck. Imagine building a pyramid. It's 100 degrees out. You're hauling massive blocks of stone. At the end of the day, your boss doesn't give you cash. He gives you 4 liters of thick, bready beer. Was it a scam? No. It was a survival strategy. This beer was packed with nutrients. It was safer to drink than the river water. It kept the workers strong. It kept the empire running. Think about your own job for a second. Would you accept a Starbucks gift card as your entire salary? Probably not. But for an Egyptian worker, beer was better than gold. It was life. It was a source of energy. And it was a way to keep everyone happy while they did back-breaking work. In many ways, the Great Pyramid wasn't built on sweat. It was built on barley ale. But why? Why are we the only species that goes out of our way to feel dizzy? It's not just a social thing. It's biology. Scientists call it the Drunken Monkey hypothesis. Millions of years ago, our ancestors came down from the trees. They found fermented fruit on the forest floor. It was a calorie goldmine. Those who could eat the rotting, alcoholic fruit without getting sick had more energy to survive. Those who couldn't, they didn't make it. Is it a glitch in our DNA? Maybe. But it's a glitch that kept us alive. We didn't learn to like alcohol. We evolved to crave the energy it provides. It's an evolutionary paradox. What once helped us survive in the jungle is now why we have to be careful at happy hour. It's a deep, primal drive that hasn't left our system. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we hadn't discovered that first jar of fermented rice in China, would we still be wandering the plains? Would we have ever bothered to build cities? Maybe not. Alcohol was the social glue. It was the currency. It was the medicine. It has been with us since the very beginning, through every wedding, every funeral, and every peace treaty. The strange part is how little has changed. We have fancy bars and 4K screens now. We have Amazon Prime delivering bottles to our door in an hour. But the feeling of sharing a drink and telling a story, that's 10,000 years old. It's the one thing that connects us directly to those people in the caves. They weren't just primitive, they were us. They were curious. They were social, and they loved a good drink. Maybe our ancestors understood something we've forgotten. Alcohol wasn't just a way to escape reality. It was a way to create a new one. It was a way to build a community out of strangers. They didn't drink to forget their lives. They drank to celebrate the fact that they were alive. Next time you raise a glass, take a second to look at it. You're holding a 10,000 experiment. You're participating in the world's longest-running accident. You aren't just drinking a beverage. You're connecting to a long line of curious humans who decided that a bubbling jar of fruit was worth a taste. Was it worth it? Look around you. Everything we've built suggests the answer is yes. So, what would you choose? A life of total sobriety and wandering, or a life of settled agriculture and a glass of wine? I know which one I'd pick. I'd be right there in Georgia, burying my Qvevri and waiting for the harvest. Because at the end of the day, we're all just looking for a reason to sit by the fire together. Don't let that tradition fade. Tell the story, share the drink, and remember that we were designed to do more than just survive. We were designed to toast to the journey. Cheers to that.